In crafting my main gaming PC and my editing rig, I have just created a bit of a cliche. This is Lian Li's Vision Compact, which I did a video on about a year ago, but decided that I wanted to build again because I absolutely love the case. I think it's very aesthetically pleasing. I put in there a few things which you might have seen other people do, like the infinity mirror fans, the universal display, a Kraken cooler, and obviously a 9070 XT, Lian Li's wireless strimmers, wireless fans, and it ended up looking really good, and it also is running very well and nice and quietly, and that's important to me because I want it to be able to run this rig, both gaming and working, having it running quietly but looking really nice as well. I decided to craft this PC because I was having problems with my main machine, numerous different issues, problems with RAM. Actually, 2 different kits of RAM were having issues where one stick wasn't working properly and was causing crashes. I was having numerous blue screens of death and other issues, and also problems with my NVMe storage. So I've basically got all new parts here. So I thought it might be fun to talk about the logic of what I've done and why. Now, first of all, I'm starting with the X870 Aurora Stealth Ice. I wanted a rear connect motherboard because these are the cleanest looking. I'm also packing it full of storage that I'll get to in a minute, but I'm using the 9950X3D CPU from AMD because I want that balance of productivity and gaming performance. The 9800X3D will make sense for more people in terms of gaming if that's all you're doing, but obviously going to be using this rig for editing and for other things as well, so I want the combination of both. This is a really nice looking board, as you'll see from multiple angles, and very clean. And in it, I'm going to be sticking in a bunch of storage. So I bought multiple Gen 4 P310 drives from Crucial. The thinking here is I like Crucial's drives, and although this board supports Gen 5, I've actually had quite a few issues with Gen 5 NVMe's from different brands in my systems, where I've experienced a couple of them overheating, and I think Gen 4 is perfectly suitable for what I'm going to be using it for. So I've got one 2TB drive as my main operating drive. Then on the bottom half of this, I'm putting 2 4TB drives in, which might seem excessive, but you'd be surprised how fast video files fill up on these things. So recording clips from my main channel, and then the other ones for clips from my gameplay channel, which also have loads of videos for. And so I've got multiple drives in here in this system, separated out so I can keep control of them nice and easily and just organize things. In terms of RAM, I'm using Corsair's Dominator Titanium RAM, 2 sticks, 32GB, and also 2 sticks of the lighting enhancement kit. Now, I'll leave all the specs of the build in the description down below, but I thought it was worth just showing some of the highlights of the elements of the build. The reason I chose the Vision Compact out of all the other cases I've built with over the last year or more is that I really like the ease of construction of this and putting things in it. It works really well with the rear connect motherboard, and as you've seen already, it ends up looking really good by the time you've finished. Other highlights include various different Velcro ties that you can run your cables through. Notice I've removed the cages for the hard disk drives at the back so I can access these parts to plug those cables in. I'm actually going to stick one of those back in at the end to help hide things away. But there's plenty of points for managing your cables even when you put your power supply in. I'm using the Lian Li Edge power supply unit, which is also perfect for this build. Although you can use other power supplies, the cables for this work really nicely with the rear connect motherboard, and it's very convenient to be able to plug the cables in and see them as you're doing so with this angled design. Vision Compact also has these nice brackets which you can use to keep your cables in place. You can either slit them underneath or take them out and then put them back in, as you'll see me do in a second, and manage the cables out of the way and keep them nice and tidy. Now, a dual chamber case obviously means you can hide a lot of your cable shame at the back. Rear connect motherboard means it's also not visible from the front, so this is perfect for that setup. Meanwhile, around the front, I'm using the thermal paste guard from Noctua to stop the spillage of thermal paste going over the CPU edges, and then some cryofuse from Cooler Master in terms of the thermal paste, and applying that just because it's got a funky color and I wanted to test out what it was like to use in the system. In terms of CPU cooling, I'm using the Kraken Elite 360 V2. This is the 2024 model, which has a massive display on it and a large pump setup, which was pretty tricky to get through that rubber mounting at the top of the case. However, the nice thing about this case is that you can do a push-pull setup. So on the front, I've got reverse blade fans, and on the rear, I've got standard blade fans. So we've got a push-pull setup there in terms of the airflow. There's also room to hide the tubes at the back of the case and that connectivity cable which comes out the radiator as well, meaning that most of the front of the case remains really neat, with minimal cables from the AIO visible that way, so you can plug them in at the rear and then tidy those up nicely and hide them out of the way as well. For the bottom of the case, I'm using reverse blade infinity fans as well, so 320mm mounted to the bracket here. This really doesn't take long during the installation process. Life is very straightforward with Vision Compact. As I said, I've got a separate build guide on this if you want to see the full steps for it that I'll link to in the description. But it is a really easy case to build in and a very nice looking one. My cable shame has ended up a little bit messy by the end of it, so putting the hard disk drive cage back in hides away some of it, but it also doubles as a little place to put the wireless dongle for the infinity fans and for the wireless RGB cables for the GPU as well. Now I've got the universal display mounted up here as well. I used the stickers to mount this to the top of the case. Wasn't quite happy with the positioning of that, so I actually move it down a little later on, as you'll see the difference in the positioning between these shots in case you notice it. And the installation of the cabling for the graphics card is a little bit complicated because that had to come from the side rather than below, just because there's not much room down at the bottom of the case. I'm still pretty happy with how it came out. One downside is both the screen and the cooler are upside down in terms of the displays before you get into Windows, and obviously run NZXT software and Lian Li's software so that you can adjust those by rotating them in there. It's a minor problem, but it didn't look great with the initial setup, which is why these clips here are featuring the case without me actually peeling the plastic off. So I made a few mistakes. I forgot to peel the plastic off the inside of the glass before I did the outside, which you might not notice in these shots, but something to bear in mind if you do get the case. Every bit of glass has plastic both on the inside and on the outside of it. I also had to adjust the positioning of the universal display. As I said, I moved it down a bit and I moved the tubes for the pump a little bit over further to the right, so it looked a bit cleaner up there. I was actually happy with how this ended up because it ends up blocking the holes at the top of the motherboard so you can't see through to the back of the case quite so much. So that display actually works really well in that position. And very happy with the performance and the setup of the fans. So I've got intake fans on the bottom, intake fans on the side, and then 2 exhaust fans at the rear. And this is running very quietly across a number of games. Now I'm playing Battlefield 6 here at 4K on pretty high settings, so I'm trying to push it as much as possible, getting 120 FPS. And as you can see, the GPU is running at 55 degrees, CPU just over 60. Really good performance there. Very smooth, and this was with the fan profile set to quiet as well, so it's actually with the whole system running very quietly and still getting really good performance in terms of being smooth, looking good, and running cool as well. So I was really pleased with how this came out. Now, considering how compact the case is, you think you might be sacrificing some of that cooling performance, especially when I've come from the Evo XL. So my previous build was in a much bigger case. I've actually got less fans and more glass, which I thought would have a pretty negative impact on the performance and cooling, although based on my previous review of this case, I knew it would be a pretty decent one, and the different specs in here have actually worked out pretty well for me anyway, so it has been perfectly fine. Obviously the GPU is sitting very close to those bottom fans, which is perfect because you've got intake fans blowing directly onto the graphics card. Now here's IL Sturmovik 2 in a Spitfire to test out the performance of that, and despite the new case, it doesn't make me better at flying. But again, you can see GPU and CPU temperatures are nice and low. So 56 on the GPU, 57 on the CPU, decent FPS, 4K, maximum settings, visually stunning, and performance-wise really good as well. Just listen to how quiet it is too. It's hard to do that justice on video, and depending on what you're listening to, but what I found is there hasn't been a significant increase in noise levels despite having a smaller case and running similar games to what I've been testing in other machines. So this has worked out perfectly. This is why I like the Infinity fans, the wireless models, and the previous versions, because they look really nice and they run really quietly and effectively as well. So I have done some benchmarking, And the score in Cinebench wasn't as high as I'd like with the 9950X3D, but that's probably because I've got the gaming performance mode on instead of the focus on productivity. But the temperatures, as you can see, are really good here as well. So overall, really pleased with how this has come out. Looks really nice, runs really well, and it's going to be a great machine for gaming and working on. Hopefully you found this video interesting, and don't forget to check out the other videos on this case, linked down in the description below, as well as other things in the build as well. This has been the Provoked Prawn. Thanks very much for watching.
You've made it right to the end of the video, you brilliant legend you. If you've enjoyed it, click that subscribe button, give me a thumbs up, and drop me a comment down below if you've got any questions. If you really enjoyed it, consider joining the channel and see the benefits of doing so. Check out these other videos. You might well find them interesting or useful. And most importantly, have a great life.